Hi guys, welcome back. It's been a while since I made a video, just mainly been busy. I'm a full-time photographer, so it's been wedding season. It's been lovely to get back doing weddings and being around everyone and just seeing some normality. We have been out on the bikes a little bit recently, which has been great. So basically this video is about, I want to upgrade the rear shock on the Bandit, mainly because we did some long trips and I felt as if the more the trip progressed, the worse the shock got. And I felt like I was going to get thrown off the seat a couple of times, and the preload was only really on about 5 out of 7. Now bear in mind, I'm a 17 stone something guy, so the bike's not built for my weight. So I've wanted to do a few things to upgrade the shock. And I also did the front springs, which I didn't make a video on. I bought some Agen progressive front springs from Just Bandits, and they recommended an oil that came with it. And to be honest, I put them in and it didn't feel any normal at all, any different. So I'm assuming I already had some decent springs in, which just weren't great for me. So I've been messing about with the oil weights on that, and I might make a video at some point. But just to summarise, the 7.5 weight oil descent with the springs was ridiculously soft, as you can probably imagine. They didn't ask any questions about, what do I weigh, how do I ride, just sent me these springs, which I think is a bit rubbish. So I ended up putting 10 weight oil in, which actually felt better. And it's just, but with the progressive springs, I'm not too convinced that the preload does anything. So I'm still playing around with that. With linear springs, it probably does. With this, I don't think it does. I've now got 15 weight oil in the front, and I'm finding I can wind off the preload a bit more. And I think I'm going to find a nice happy medium. Anyway, I decided to plump for a YSS rear shock and see how that went. Great reviews. Everyone said they're amazing. Changes the bike, they said. Dramatically changes the bike. So it came. Lovely looking spring. And it was wound down quite far already. And I thought, okay, maybe that's how it's meant to be. Fit it to the bike, which I'm going to show you how I did it in a minute. And I found I couldn't set the sag, but this is a progressive rear shock. So I'm getting the same thing with that. I don't think ride sag really comes into it with these kind of springs. I'm not a track racer, I'm a road rider. I do like to have fun in the twisties, but I'm certainly not a knee down rider. So maybe it doesn't matter. And that's what I'm exploring with this. And I may have to make another video on how I find this as I go along. I'm playing about with the rebound on this rear shock. It's got 30 or 32 settings. I started at 16, thought midway. Initially, I wound it right down to try and get the ride sag right, but then I wound it back off again. You'll probably see that on some of the pictures in a minute. And I'm starting to find that I added another 2 turns of rebound, and I've took off a little bit of preload, and I'm starting to find it's not, I mean, it corners fine, it rides nice. I'm just still feeling a bit harsh when you hit a bump and you get that feeling when you're going to be chucked off the seat. I've watched a lot of Dave Moss videos and he explains this quite a lot. So I focused on the static sag as a good starting point and not worrying so much about the rider sag and everything else. I suppose if I had a better bike and better suspension, linear springs, all this would matter. But as a normal day rider, long distance rider, we like doing 100, 200 miles or more. We're doing NC 500 next year. And I think it's more about how a bike rides rather than these figures that you see on the internet and everyone's saying you must have this, you must have that. So I'm going to investigate how this really works. And this first video is just how I installed the shock. It shows you what to undo, what not, and what to do. I hope it helps. I'm going to talk over it because I didn't when I made it, I didn't want to do any talking because, to be fair, I was just winging it. So let's see what you think. I hope it works. So here we have the first part of the install. You've got to remove the right hanger so you can get to the linkage bolts. I had my deal set on the lowest setting, by the way, so not to tear anything to bits. I could have used an X key, but this is soft and does it nice and quick and easy. And you basically take these off because there's a bolt that has the main linkage and you can't get to it. Well, you probably could with a spanner, but I want to keep it really simple. And I know that when I've tried to clean the linkages before,
the nut that I'm going to try and get to was absolutely solid, which is one of the reasons why I bought the DeWalt XR, because it's got some serious grunt. It's got the 1/2 inch attachment there. We've got 3 settings. The third setting would undo just about anything from what I've found so far. So we're just going to move that out of the way after I've stared at it for a minute. I should have put something underneath that so it wouldn't scratch the frame, because as you can tell it's rubbing against the paintwork there. So the main nut we're going to do is that one there. That's the tight main linkage bolt, and underneath you've got the other linkage bolts and the shock bolt. Undo those, and there's one in the top, just under there, as you can see it, and the shock drops out. The shock undone, and you can see I've undone the linkage underneath, and the linkage needs to be undone and taken off, and it gives you access to dropping the shock down. And so then we take the rear shock out. It just drops out once you've undone all those bolts, and then obviously you need to get the linkage off. That's the linkage. In there you've got some needle bearings which need to be cleaned and greased, and that's the clean. Those pop out, and you grease underneath and grease inside there. Give it a feel, see if there's any kind of any resistance or wear. If so, then you replace the needle bearings. This was good, so it's ready to be refitted and put back on.
GoPro, stop recording.
And that's just showing you where you need to put your extension in, so you can undo the top of the rear shock and get that off. And then with the new shock in place, it's ready for the linkages to be put back on. And as you can see there, it's the brand new YSS shock. The bottom black collar there is for the rebound adjustment, and to adjust the preload, there's a ring at the top. You undo a grub screw, and then it comes with a little tool, and it just turns really easily actually until you get to the bottom of as it gets tighter. And then basically for this I just reinstalled the linkage, and it was good to go. I will however mention that this spring was 10mm longer, because basically I bought the shock for a 1200, wanting the extra strength. So now when it's on the centre stand, I just have to put a little block underneath it to lift it for 5 or 10mm, and it's fine. Now this shock is set for 150 Nm, so it is a stronger than standard shock. And as you can see, the top, the silver ring there is where you adjust it, and yeah, it's a good spring, and I'll give some more feedback soon. And so off we go on a bit of a test ride. And as I said in the initial video, at first it didn't feel much different, but I did wind it right down in order to try and get the ride sag figures where they needed to be. Now there's different options that you can do here before anybody says anything. Yes, I could buy a spring suited to my weight, and I could change the spring on that particular shock for about £40, and that means I will be able to get the ride sag numbers correct, and it'll be based on my weight. Now, based on another video I saw, when somebody else did that, they found the ride unbearable, which means it's probably great if you're a track rider or you're racing about. But for people who like to do long distance trips and ride a lot, they've said that the spring that suits your weight is a bit too hard. And he put back on the spring that came with it, like the one I've just showed you, and he found that the ride was much more improved and the bike still handled fine. However, he did have more of a touring bike like this, but actually a bit more of an adventure bike. So I'm thinking, us people who are doing normal rides and not racing about, you don't necessarily need that extra spring weight. I'm still toying around with this and getting it more comfy, and to be fair, the ride quality is improving. It's going around corners fine, the stability's fine, so I think it's going to be good. I mean, £235, and it obviously will be an improvement on the stock shock because they are rubbish. If I was to buy the shock for the 650, it was another £50. So yes, the 1200 shock is a little bit longer. Now the shock length isn't longer, it's where they've put the pre-drilled hole, which adds the 10mm, which is crazy. Now, it doesn't affect anything to do with the bike, doesn't affect the ride. It's just when it's on the centre stand, the rear wheel's slightly touching the floor, so spinning it for cleaning isn't as easy. I put a 4 or 5mm piece of wood under there, which is quite big, so the bike's still stable, and I can spin the wheel and clean it and do the chain and everything. So it doesn't actually matter to me that the shock is a slightly different length. And for the £50 it would have cost extra for the 650 shock. Would that shock have been any good? From what I've seen on the spring, you see the numbers. The middle number is the Newton meter rating, and this is 150. I've seen some which just say 90, and I'm going to bet that the 650 one's only 90. So this is a slight upgrade anyway. So it's going to be fun toying around with it. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please do ask, and I'll see you again.